deserve to have the best physical, mental, spiritual, Zealous Wellness with Mike Hollis.
Hello, and welcome to another episode of Zealous Wellness with Mike Hollis. I'm your host. What is it, April 14th today? So yeah, we're flying right through these podcasts. And again, I got to tell you, I'm loving it. I'm having a lot of fun with these. I love sharing my experiences. And again, I'm not a professional in a lot of the things I'm talking about. Obviously, with kicking, I was, but with regards to just kind of things in general, just more or less my experiences, which have taught me a lot. I'm going to be talking today a lot about consistency. Okay, so that's really the name of the game when it comes to a kicking position on a football field, on a football team. I think obviously, being consistent is something that will prolong your career in football as a kicker, for sure. And consistency, with regards to how consistent these athletes are these days, they've gotten really really good. But I'm going to kind of relate to everything in life about being consistent with a lot of different aspects of what what we do on a daily basis, and just things in general, that we kind of develop a system of being consistent with. When you're inconsistent with things, there's a lot of chaos. You don't have a lot of trust in what you're doing. If you're inconsistent with stuff, you'll never know what to expect. So when you find that consistency, I think that there's a certain level of awareness of things that are happening the same all the time. But it does take a little bit of time to develop, and it kind of depends on what it is you're referring to with regards to consistency. Clearly, with kicking, I can always talk about kicking because that's the name of the game. That being as consistent as you possibly can be is what really makes you good as a kicker. Of course, leg strength and things like that, but the consistency is what coaches are looking for because they want to trust you first off. Consistency is what they're looking for because they want to put points on the board. If you're kicking field goals, of course. If you're a punter, they want to gauge the return or the coverage, really based on where you're going to put the ball. As a kickoff specialist or anybody kicking off, it's the same kind of thing. You want to be consistent with what the plan is, right? What the play call is, right? So I'm going to talk a lot about that, the concept of being consistent in everyday life and things that you're doing. And once again, it does take some time to develop. And, again, I've mentioned a lot of times around, trial and error. A lot of the things I've always grown up to be just kind of a self-taught kind of person. Although with kicking, I was taught, certain technique, and a lot of other things I was really taught, kind of on my own merit. I was kind of, one of those kids that took things apart and tried to put it back together just to learn how the thing worked. Kind of reverse engineer. I'm really, I think I go back to my childhood when I talk about my abilities to reverse engineer things. So, but again, that helps with being consistent with things, obviously, because, when you understand and you have the knowledge of how things work, you can work on the right things to become more consistent, right? So with that said, I'm going to pass it on to a short word from our sponsor, and we'll be right back in a few minutes.
At 3, we want to give you the true health benefits that you're paying for, something you can feel and see a difference quickly. Each product is packed with powerful plant-based nutrients that are combined through a proprietary curation process and then infused with innovative cellular absorption technologies to ensure the nutrients absorb into the cells for maximum wellness. The quality and effectiveness of our life-changing products is evident by their approval to be included in the well-known Prescriber's Digital Reference, or PDR. PDR has been a valuable resource to the medical doctors and providers in the healthcare community for decades. Our products are GMO-free, clinically studied, and third-party tested, all designed to support health and proactive wellness for everyone.
And welcome back. We are talking today about being consistent and how to kind of, more or less achieve consistency. Things, obviously I've mentioned kicking. Clearly that's pretty obvious. You want to work on things and be as consistent as possible. There are, I'm gonna stick with kicking for a moment here. There are, I've mentioned in previous podcasts that, there's a system that would be, ideal, where, if someone like my coach, who taught me something that I know, and and I know now, obviously, because I learned it from him, but if he knew the right system of kicking, and he was trying to teach me the right system of kicking, and I wanted to do something else that I didn't trust his way, and I wanted to do my own, I would probably end up finding myself backtracking. And again, we talked about that building with all the ladders on it, and you can't see the top, and you got like four ladders that take you. One of them takes you to the top. The other three do not. Well, he's showing me the ladder that takes it to the top, and that's success, right? But I'm being stubborn, and I want to try some other ways. But I've always learned that I typically would have to backtrack and just start all over, right? So being consistent is, first off, having to kind of discover the right ways of doing things. And again, going back to kicking, it really has a lot to do with your mindset and what you feel is working. And obviously, if things are working, you want to stick with those to become more consistent. But that's the other thing too, is when again with kicking, my biggest thing was trying to simplify the process, so I wouldn't have to learn as many movements and things like that. That more likely they're pretty irrelevant. I've discovered that as a kicking coach for 19 years, that there's a lot of kids that come to me and share their information about what they've been taught, whether it's from YouTube or just kind of self-taught, like I did, back in the day. But they come with all these things that they're working on. I'm like, man, you're making it complicated. You got to simplify the process. And that's the thing too, is, as kickers, we have so much pressure to begin with anyways. You want to simplify a process, because, the more simple it is, the more consistent you can be doing less moving parts, right? So simplifying anything will really help with consistency, because there's not a lot of, you're not trying to master a bunch of movements or thoughts, or in everyday life things, whatever it is that you're referring to about being consistent with. You're not having to do a bunch of things to make that whatever that is happen, right? So consistency comes with simple movements, motions, thoughts, ideas, things like that. I've always been a huge fan of simplifying. I'm a very simple man anyways. I don't need much, and I'm content. We'll put it that way. I'm very content with my life. I just kind of just go with the flow. Obviously I can't treat life too serious, but again, you got to be a little bit serious at times, and be an adult about things, and so forth. But when it comes to consistency, you will learn what it's like when you're not consistent with something. I will give you an example. I've shared this information before. When I retired from the NFL after 9 years of playing, and many years prior to that with college and high school and all that, kicking footballs for many years. The last thing I wanted to do was go to the weight room, because I was like, man, that's all I did. I did a lot of workouts in the weight room. I was on the field running, sprinting, doing all kind of anaerobic ladder, quick feet drill type of work, speed and agility type of stuff all the time. And, I retired from the sport. So I'm like, well, I don't really know if I want to keep doing this. And when I took the time off of not working out, I've mentioned this before, my back was starting to hurt. I had 4 back surgeries during my NFL career. So I thought that, oh, my back's going to feel great because I'm not kicking anymore. And then I took it a little step further and thought, well, I've been working out so much. I'm going to take some time off, and I don't really know if I need to work out. I'm just going to diet and, you just eat healthier, and just kind of, because I was burnt out. I really was. And my back, it was very difficult to deal with, nerve pain down one of your legs, my left leg primarily. So I thought that, taking time off and not working out and not kicking, clearly I'm not going to be kicking anymore. That was before I started my academy. So I really didn't have a chance to feel what it would be like, because I stopped kicking, and then I stopped working out, and it actually turned out to backfire on me. Like I was saying before, it's like, I have to kind of start all over, and like, well, I learned from that experience. And then, of course, and then start working out again. This was a couple months, maybe 2 or 3 months. And, I got a little out of shape, and I was like, yeah, I'm trying to eat healthy, but it's hard, and you get a little bit out of shape, and next thing you know, my back was starting to hurt more. I'm like, man, this is not what I wanted. I didn't expect that. So I kind of learned that, well, maybe I need to, keep my core at least in shape, and I'll just do an all around, full body type of, something that will, something consistent, put it that way, to be in the, gym 3 or 4 times a week, whatever the case may be. I didn't have to overdo it like I did in football, and so I felt okay, let's start that. Well, my back was hurting, and so when I started to work out again after 2 or 3, 4 months, whatever it was, my back hurt worse. I'm like, man, this is not working out like I thought it was going to work out. And so I didn't, I kind of was, put my mind to it. And I was like, you know what? I'm gonna, give it some more, because I don't see why my back is hurting, when I'm not working out as much, and now when I'm working out more, I understand it might hurt a little bit because I'm kind of, retraining some muscles and doing things maybe in the weight room that might be, putting some pressure on my back. So I'll take it easy or whatever. So I kind of took baby steps and got back into shape, and lo and behold, my back stopped hurting actually. So in the midst of all of that, I learned a very valuable lesson, that when I need to stay in shape to keep my back healthy and keep me pain free for the most part. I still had to take Advil and things like that occasionally when I was starting my kicking academy, and I had to demonstrate for kids, and I was on my feet a long time, daily pretty much. But so I learned, again, I mentioned, it was trial and error. Learning how to be consistent with anything in life is going to take some time. Now you might have some guidance. With kicking, obviously I had guidance, with, my back the way it was, I didn't have any guidance. I didn't, maybe some knowledge out there that I could have looked up and found out the reason why, well, I shouldn't probably stop working out because it'll probably start hurting my back. So I got to stay in shape. And so I kind of learned the hard way. And then fast forward, 4 or 5, I don't know, it was a while ago. I went through a divorce, and that was stressful. And during that time, that was in 2001, I think, or no, I'm sorry, 2010, 10 and 11, officially 12 is when I officially got divorced. But my point with that is that was a very stressful time for me. And so I kind of, I was sad, depressed, and food was my go-to, and so guess what? I got lazy again, and I stopped working out, and I started eating like crap. And once again, I was like, man, I experienced this before again. Here I am again in the same boat I was many years ago when I retired from the NFL and ate like crap and didn't work out. My back was hurting. So again, I'm like, okay, well, I remember what happened last time. I got to get my butt up and get back in shape and be happy again and so forth, which was a good thing because working out does make you happy, and it does release endorphins in your body and it the dopamine and things like that. It's a feel good state of mind in your body. So that helped. Okay, so now I'm getting back in shape and do my thing. And then later on, had a girlfriend that, I was with for a while, and, we got, I guess we got lazy. I wanted to spend more time with her, and she wasn't a big workout person. Plus she had a lot of, pain and issues in her body. So she didn't do a lot of working out, but I kind of started to go back in that shape, that bad shape thing again. And then I caught myself, actually, it was a little late. Again, this is probably my third time. This was probably the heaviest I ever got. So I was like, man, I can't do this anymore. I gotta snap out of this, because it's easy to quit. It's easy to kind of give up on things and get inconsistent with stuff. And if you don't care about what it is you're doing, then being inconsistent doesn't really matter. Right. So, that's when I started doing the boxing workout. And I'm telling you that I've been doing that for 11 years now, maybe more. And I tell you that that was probably the heaviest of my life. And when I started doing that, yeah, it was tough. It was very difficult. But I got over the hump, and I was hesitating turning into the parking lot. I'm like, what am I doing back here again? I'm going to die. This is so hard. But I knew, it's just take some time to get kind of in shape. And, I'm a competitor. So, especially when they put these impact wraps on the bags, they put these things that kind of sensed it sensed how many times you hit the bag with your gloves, obviously, but it also sensed the pressure you put on the punches themselves. Right. So, I always wanted a high score, and there's a couple people in the gym at the time, during the times that they had the impact wraps on the bags that I was competing with, the big guys, and they're hitting the bag really hard. And so, I gotta out hit them, and I want a higher score, which I did a lot, but again, it was hard. It was so hard. So I got kind of back in that mindset. I was like, man, I don't want to do this again. But I stayed consistent with myself, and I thought, you know what, I need to just get back in shape and don't, I was in shape. I was in great shape at that point, but it was really hard. It was hard to score high every time. And it was very challenging. And I don't think I could have done it very long, as far as consistently like I was doing it. So I backed off. And plus I got rid of the impact wraps, which I think was better because my technique went to crap. I started throwing really wild punches and didn't really listen to the instructor very much. I was just doing my own combinations because I wanted to hit the bag as many times as I could. Well, again, getting consistent with, the reason why I'm there. I'm there to do a full body workout, to stay in shape. I'm not trying to get in the ring and box anybody. It's you're only hitting a bag. You're not punching anybody in title boxing, what I'm still doing to this day. But so when it comes to, being consistent with my workouts, yes, I had ups and downs, but man, the last 11 years, I've been pretty consistent. Very rarely do I take time off, and I don't think I get out of shape or heavy or fat. I haven't really since, maybe a time or two, a little bit, but not anywhere near what I was before. So I learned the hard way, stay consistent with my workouts, as hard as it might seem. Going to these motivational things, I've always seen, Tom Brady, he says, F your feelings about your body being sore, get up and do it anyways, and that was his mentality. And it's challenging. It's tough. I mean, if you want to stay consistent with stuff, you have to be consistent with that, no matter how bad you feel, And so working out, like I said, there was times when I didn't want to go to the gym, but I turned left into the parking lot anyways. I thought, well, I'm here anyways, I might as well do it. And here's the catch, though. With regards to that, anything really with any consistent things that you do that you may not enjoy a lot or whatever, once you start it, once you just get out of bed, that's step one. Take baby steps. It's fine. Just, yeah, you want to stay consistent. Again, it's incredibly easy to quit. It is so easy to quit. I could stay in bed all the time. But again, I remember what I felt like when I stayed in bed all the time and I ate like crap. I felt like crap. Okay. So I didn't want to feel like crap anymore. And so I did something about it. And so that's really kind of where Tom Brady's talking about. If you want to be your best, you can't, stop doing something when you're supposed to be doing it, every single day or whatever your routine is, and be consistent with it. Because part of being consistent is continuing to do what you're doing, right? Because if you stop doing what you're doing, now you're inconsistent with it. So you can think of it that way as far as the workouts. You can even think about your diet. That's what I think, and I'll kind of, end on this note as far as the consistency part of this podcast. But you think about people who, you think about the statistics when gym owners are really excited about January coming around, like, oh, it's January. Oh, we're going to get all these new enrollments. People are going to have New Year's resolutions and, oh, they're going to get healthy and fit. How long does those, maybe a month or two, do they see a big increase in memberships? And then all of a sudden out of nowhere, they start losing members because these members decide that it might be too hard, or they didn't think it was, going to be, they didn't see the results, whether it's diet or exercise, whatever you're trying to get in, shape. I've just already kind of talked about being, in shape and doing, consistent workouts, but let's switch into the fact of your diet. When you have people who get on diets and expecting to lose weight in the first 2-3 weeks, and if they're working out, well, I'll add that one on top of there too, they actually gain weight. I've always learned that you're not supposed to gauge your diet or what about, how you feel about the diet, if it's working or not. You don't gauge it by the scale, especially the first few weeks, especially if you're working out, because if you're working out, you're gaining muscle. If you haven't worked out, for a while, and then you start working out, clearly you're going to start to gain some muscle mass. Well, muscle weighs a little bit more than fat. So if you're gaining muscle mass, and fat takes time to burn off because your body goes through adjustments and things like that. Because it's like, hey, what are you doing? This is crazy. We're taking in less calories. Like, I don't know what to do. So you understand that your body, you get a little heavier initially. And people get misled by that. And this isn't working. I tried this diet. I tried that diet. It never worked for me. And then they'll try another diet. Whatever fad is coming in at the time, they'll try that. And, these pill poppers and these people that think a magic pill is going to make them lose weight. And 9 times out of 10, it might initially, but in the long term, if they get off the pill, or, maybe the pill starts to give them some side effects and they don't like that. So they have to get off of it. Well, guess what? They get heavy again. You have to change the lifestyle, so being consistent with your lifestyle is something that's going to be beneficial in the long run. And that's where people don't see the benefits of they don't see it, they don't give it a chance. They don't stay in it long enough. And so that's where I've talked about this before, where you're talking about your workouts, and you're going to take a few steps back before you get, before you move forward in working out and getting stronger. You probably feel a little weaker at first. Same thing with the diet. You're not going to see results. Like you can't expect to eat healthy. Like if you ate vegetables for a week, yeah, you probably lose some weight and you might feel a little different, but you might feel a little sluggish, or maybe you're not taking in the same kind of calories you used to, and maybe you don't feel the energy like you did. Plus the fact that you're not probably taking in as many calories as you did before. But you're going to give up on that. You don't give it a chance. Like, come on, like seriously, like you made a commitment. That's the other thing too about consistency, is if you want to be consistent, you got to commit. You got to commit to things that you may not like at times. But I've always been, I told you about 3 different times I got really heavy and fat and out of shape. I like to say that I'm pretty good at commitments, but clearly I'm not. I'm a victim of that as well, of my own personal lack of commitment in certain things. And that was just pure laziness, maybe depression from my from my divorce. But there's all excuses. I can bring up all kinds of excuses. But the bottom line is, if you want to be consistent with stuff and learn how to, stay within what you committed, you made that commitment. Well, it has a lot to do with your consistency. So doesn't matter what it is in life. If you're learning a skill, if you're, work, job, all that kind of stuff, things like that. How many times are you going to be fired from a job that you had, that you just decided to stay in bed one day and you're calling in sick all the time? Your employer's not going to like that. And that's not consistency at all. And so if you have a lot of those, jobs that you've gotten fired from on your resume, or these other jobs that you're trying to get, they find out that you've quit or you've got fired from multiple jobs, then how's that working out for you? You're not going to succeed in life if you keep quitting on yourself. And so that's the thing, is you have to really determine what is important to you. And that's the thing too, is like, if you have a passion about something, it's pretty, I don't say it's easy, but it's easier to stay committed to that and not quit. But like jobs that you don't like, I understand that. I've done some jobs after I retired from football that I had an office job for a while. It was kind of interesting, but I just was on call a lot, and it wasn't my lifestyle. I didn't want to be one of those people that just went into an office from 8:30 to 4:30 every day. And then I was doing some other stuff, still do my kicking academy too. So I was burnt out. So it was very difficult, but I made the commitment. But I did quit. I left that job for another job in the sports industry, which is more of my passion. So yes, there are times like that. Yes, you have to, make a decision whether you want to move forward with something else, which, is okay. But you got to commit to that too. So that company actually, they didn't really do what they said they were going to do for me. It was almost like they were wanting to use me instead of for purposes of my employment. They wanted to use me and my connections for their benefit and not mine. So I kind of read into that, and I left that because and I just stuck with my kicking academy. I've been doing that for 19 years. So talk about commitment. I'm coaching kids. I've been coaching kids for almost 19 years. Okay, that is a passion of mine, because I'm able to help kids. I love it. And I've always related to my size, and my form of technique is really what got me in the NFL and maintained that position for as long as I did. And the commitment, it wasn't easy. That's the hard part too, is like, kicking in the NFL, very stressful for me, at least. Now there's other kickers that just love game day and they have so much excitement. I was not one of those. Game days I was a wreck, but I stayed with it, and I had, 4 back surgeries, and I got to a point where I didn't want to let my team down, and I didn't want to really, really, really hurt my back. So I decided to retire after my 3rd surgery, and actually 4th. I got a staph infection from the 3rd surgery. So I had 4 surgeries on my lower back, and went through all my rehab, and was kicking, fairly well again, 50 plus yards, whatever again. But that's, in NFL, you got to be kicking, close to 60 or whatever. And I don't know if I ever got back to that strength again, but I just didn't want to let my team down. And I got released from the Giants, and that was kind of the sign, like, hey, you know what, you have to reevaluate this and think about what you want to do. Cause I got released by failed physical. So I'm like, well, okay, well, I thought I was healthy enough, but apparently I wasn't. So that was a decision I had to make. But as far as committing, yeah, there's things that can hinder a decision like that. But you really got to just understand where your passion is and what commitment you made in the first place. If you're going to commit to starting a diet, you have to give it a chance, because if you are truly passionate about your health and wellness and your commitment that you've made for your health and wellness, and you got to stay consistent with your commitment. Okay. You made that commitment for a reason. Okay. If you're not committed long enough to see really and feel how well you're going to feel, in the long run. But at that point, it does require a lifestyle change. And the sad part is, I've seen it firsthand where people don't make that healthy lifestyle change until they come across a really major issue in their bodies. Cancer will say, there are things that are life threatening. Oh yeah, okay, gosh, I really got to do. Well, clearly you got to stay. If you want to continue to live on the earth, you know, you got to make that commitment to stay alive, and that's going to be a lifestyle change. I've seen people do that and have to change what they eat on a daily basis. Because of things that they've done in the past that hindered their health in the long run. So I would say, understand, and knowledge is power, because if you understand these kind of things and you really put a lot of thought into, where it is you want to be in 20, 30, 40, 50 years from now, you got to start making commitments about your health and wellness, before it's too late. I've seen too many of that. And now, honestly, I think that the mindset of people is going to be a little different when we start, and I'm getting a little political here, because Bobby Kennedy, when he, obviously he's starting to do a lot of stuff. He said by September, we're going to know what the root cause of autism is, I believe. And I'm sure he's going to go right to all those childhood shots that I say I don't know how many shots I had to take, or I had from back in the day. I was born in the early 70s, man. So I know that there's a lot more, shots that they require a newborn to have these days. And my gosh, like, when are they going to stop those? Like, that's crazy. So again, that's my opinion, but I do think that people are going to have a different mindset on the foods and just things in general, our environment, and all the stuff, that all the pollutants and plastics and microplastics and all these things that we take for granted. We don't, the government's got to hurt us, and, Wi-Fi and 5G, even call me conspiracy theorist. I don't care. I just read things and I'm like, that makes a lot of sense. I'm not really sure if I want to do that anymore. And, you'll never know. I mean, because think about it. If you don't feel the effects of what it is I'm referring to, 5G or whatever, you don't know the radiation, like the microwave radiation. That's pretty much what it is, 5G. Okay, so you're on your phone with 5G, and you got, you understand that microwaves are not good. If you want to kill yourself, eat microwave food every day. You won't live much longer. I don't know how long you live, but again, my opinion. I've just heard from doctors who have reputations of being very smart. And again, I think that, wow, I'm getting political here, that there's a lot of things out there that we've been lied to about, and it's all about the mighty dollar. Okay. Pfizer's been around for 175 years. How many things have they cured? Big fat zero, nothing, none, zilch, nothing. Okay. So that should ring a bell. Like, wait a minute. They're making these pharmaceutical drugs to help, and you're donating to cancer, funds and things like that for research on cancer. I'm like, I've read a lot of things that, parasites and things like that nobody ever thought of about that. And it's all hush hush, because again, we don't get caught up into this stuff. Again, I got to stop doing this, because we're talking about consistency. We're not talking about, political things. But my point is, I know I do get a little sidetracked again, but, always understand that, knowledge is power. When you understand what it is to be healthy and live a normal life with, and try to be as fit and as healthy, and, keep your wellness up. If you got that commitment, I do. I mean, I want to live as long as I possibly can. Anti-aging is a huge deal for me, and wellness. I'm really, really lately in the last, I don't know, couple years, I've been really honing in on this. Way more than I was before. I had a conscious of it. I knew that I probably shouldn't eat that because it's not great for me. But now I'm like, wow, I really got to really watch what I'm eating and breathing and where I'm going, and sunscreen. Again, don't want to get political, but sunscreen's an issue too. Like, well, the sun doesn't cause cancer. The sun is life. The sun is your life force. You battle with me all you want, but I don't like sunscreen. Okay, I'll wear something organic or something that might help. The chemicals, the stuff they put in that stuff. Oh my gosh. Anyways, I'm not going there, but my point is, you got to be consistent with what it is you're committing to. And again, you're going to learn through trial and error what's working for you, what's consistent for you, you're making a commitment about something, follow through with your commitments. Okay. Because that's something that I've always been a pretty responsible person. When I'm saying I'm going to do something, I pretty much do it. I don't want to let myself down. And of course, if I'm going to tell somebody else I'm going to do something for them, I wouldn't, that's their thing, but I want to make sure that they understand what they're doing, so knowledge, understand what it is you're living through, and understand that there's a process, understand that things take time to develop. I know we are all impatient these days, and so it's tough for people who are impatient to really hone in on staying committed to something, especially if they're not passionate about it. If they're not passionate about something, it's very easy to quit, and I understand that. I've done it too. But just know, in your everyday life, what it is you committed to. There's a reason you committed to that, and you got to fulfill that if that's something really important to you. The best part about that, you made a commitment. Now you have to stay consistent on an everyday basis. It's not just a little bit here, a little bit there. If you made a commitment to something and you understand, that's the other thing about the knowledge. If you understand how important it is and what it takes to get to that, or to maintain that commitment that you've made, then it's easier. But again, you have to commit to that and on a daily basis. The working out part, like, it's so easy for me to stay in bed. Times when my shoulder hurts. I think, well, I don't want to hurt my shoulder anymore. Now my elbow kind of bothers me. I don't know why. I went to F45 today knowing my elbow was going to bother me. Going back to my original points, what I said to you guys a while ago when we first started this, I said, when you commit to something, you never know. Like, when you start doing it, you don't realize it's not as bad as you thought. But if I hadn't gone to the gym today, I wouldn't really realize that my elbow wasn't that bad. But when I woke up this morning, I was like, this kind of hurts. Do I go to the gym or not? I'm like, I made a commitment to go to the gym, so I'm going to the gym. And I just, like Tom Brady, screw your feelings, just do it. Which is kind of, I like that, but obviously there's a threshold to that. But with regards to just your everyday life and things that you've kind of made a commitment to, and you're looking at the long-term goals, you have to stay committed to the commitment that you made on a daily basis. You have to. Okay. And again, it's very easy to stop doing what you're doing. But you will learn. It depends on what it is. Obviously, if you stop eating healthy, you're going to get fat. Stop working out, you're going to probably get a little out of shape and maybe a little fat, depending on what you're eating too. So there's a lot of things that are going to affect you, depending on what commitment you made. So make sure that you follow through with your commitments. Say them out loud. Talk to yourself. Look yourself in the mirror every night. Say, did I fulfill my commitment today? And I'm telling you, I've done it many times. Like, you can look yourself in the mirror. When you look yourself in the mirror and you talk to yourself, it's hard to lie to yourself, because you're talking to yourself. Like, how can you lie to yourself? Oh, I did. In the back of your mind, like, I really didn't. While you're looking yourself in the mirror. Okay. That's why I've always said this. I'll end with this. If you can look yourself in the mirror at the end of each night and tell yourself honestly that you've done the best you could that day, under the circumstances that you've been given, you have succeeded. Okay. If you're lying to yourself, you clearly have failed, because you're lying to yourself. Okay. Try that sometime. Tell yourself how important you are to you, and tell yourself how committed you are to you, and live those dreams and follow your passion and stay committed to it and have fun. With that said, we'll see you next week, 5:30, Monday night. Be there.
Thank you for watching Zealous Wellness with Mike Hollis. Please like, comment, share, and subscribe. See you next time.